So if I wrote an LOTR series, this is what I would do. So the first thing that kind of comes up that I would do is, if I could, I would try to really find some characters that probably haven't been really explored too much. So with the Silmarillion, if I had access to that, I could pick a chapter, go from there. If I had access to The Hobbit, I might flip it and cover some section of The Hobbit that hadn't been covered before. But the easiest thing for me to do would be, if I had access to the resources of Amazon, what directions would I take? So if I had the resources of Amazon, I might have done two divergent things. One thing I could easily have done would be the following. I could have created a series, like an animated series, and maybe had that be the precursor, an animated series, and that series kind of had that very, very close to Tolkien's literature as possible. Because with an animated series, if it got a little bit dry, the fact that it's animated could push it further. Let's say I had been the director of Rings of Power, and let's say I had been mandated that I had to use the same exact cast. If I had the same cast that Rings of Power currently has for the first season, first of all, the writing would have been completely different, and probably most of the writing I would have done myself or with a team, let's say 5-10 people. And I think, being that our main character really is Galadriel, if I wanted her to be a little bit different than what was previously in the LOTR trilogy, I would have leaned more towards the book and not lean more towards modern conceptions. That would have been that. So some people might jump up and say, well, no, that's what they did, and they already did that, and this and that. No, they didn't do that. They just kind of completely made it up. So getting very, very specific, the first episode, if the first episode had been about Galadriel as an elfling or a young elf, then we would have only had that perspective, which could have been kind of gripping. And then I think essentially we could have had more episodes from different perspectives, like I don't know, I think there were like 3 or 4 different kind of perspectives, and maybe more episodes from just breaking it into 2 different perspectives, and then deeper kind of characterizations, like why are the characters behaving this way, and go real deep with every single character. So the show is really about Galadriel. Get really, really deep on that. As far as Sauron, why is Sauron Sauron? Who is Morgoth? Who was Sauron originally? How was Sauron previously? Was Sauron always bad? Why was Sauron seduced to the dark side? But like really, really in detail. And then, to be honest, if you really wanted it to be kind of like an evil show, or to do it from the perspective of Sauron, then really write the whole thing from that perspective, which would have been really interesting if you had written it completely from that perspective and not really kind of like made it something like middle of the road. Sort of like wanted it to be like the Tolkien Dark version of Force Awakens. That could have been done with really good writing.